Shit news, her and I will resolve this.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Because it's not like the flu, where if you've already had the flu, then you won't get it again, most likely, if it's the same strain. This is a new strain. This is not the flu. If you are in contact with it, the chances of you becoming sick from it are much higher, because you don't have any defense. I guess this flu, the bug itself, is different than other coronaviruses in that it sticks in your lungs. That's what they're saying is the difference, why it's a respiratory illness. It turns into pneumonia and kills people. Killing people being anybody who catches it, 3.4% of those who catch it die. Excuse me. That's a lot, because approximately 0.1% of people who get the flu die. So we have about a 34 times morbidity or mortality rate. In other words, if you get sick, you're 34 times more likely to die from it. Granted, the most vulnerable are those who have lung problems, immune system problems, or age, basically the inability to handle something attacking your body that much. I know that's a little bit, I'm not probably explaining that last sentence right, but roughly. So there's that. So if you catch this, it's almost a 1 in 20 chance that you're not going to live. On the average, if you're over 80, it's much higher chance of not living. I don't know the numbers exactly, but you get down into 20-year-olds or what, it's kind of like, what, 0.2% chance. So it's like twice as sickening as the flu, maybe. So I don't think that the illness itself is going to wipe humanity out. You look at these numbers and decide for yourself what severity this is, but take into account that this is not like the flu that just kind of randomly comes through. This is creating an outbreak right now. It's popping up everywhere in the country at the same time. If it's a full-on outbreak, then everybody comes down with this illness at the same time. And one of the things that separates coronavirus, which causes COVID, one of the things that separates it out is the incubation time. The time from when you contract the disease to where you show symptoms can be, in one case, up to 27 days. Usually it's under 14 days. They say about 10 days is, technically 5 days is the average, but 10 days is really normal. During this incubation period, people are contagious. So you got 10 days where you have no symptoms, and everything you touch, or you touch your face and touch something else, everything you do puts germs everywhere, and you don't even know it because you're not sick. So when people don't know it because they're not sick, they touch everything and don't even worry about it, don't even think about it. Meanwhile, other people pick it up and they're going to be sick in 10 days, but don't even know it yet. So you can see how this can get really ugly, because nobody knows they're going to be sick, and then suddenly everybody's infected and they don't know. And because it's a new virus and it's coming around at the same time, because I'll stop there and leave out why this is happening, but it's happening very suddenly, and it's something none of us have immune systems to, and none of us have the immunity to it. So it's very susceptible to infecting just about everyone, because we don't have much in the way of knowing how to stop the spread when we don't even know we're sick. Ideally, everybody carries hand sanitizer, rubs every counter down all the time, but people are just not thinking about that yet, because it has not spread out in the populace yet. But once it does, that means it's been out there for 10 days, and this thing is spreading by the day in a big way. So then what happens to people when they get ill, because 20% of the people who contract this end up in the hospital. That's a big number. 20% of the people who catch this end up in the hospital. The hospitals are very finite in how many people they can take care of. And if the flu infected 25% of the population, and I don't know the percentage that have to be hospitalized, something to look into. 25% of the population and 0.1% die. So few people end up in the hospital. In fact, with bad flus, like 2018, the hospital near me had like tents outside. They had no room inside, and they didn't want to infect people inside. So they were treating people in tents outside. They didn't have the capacity. Well, this is more contagious than 25%, much more. Let's just say it's 30%. If 30% of us get it, and 20% of that 30% are going into the hospital, that's, what is that, 5% of the entire population that has to be hospitalized? I know the math isn't exactly right, but give or take, it's 5 or 10%. Well, not 10, but that's still huge. I mean, you know, I've got what, 80,000 people in my town, let's say, and that's 25% of those people is 20,000 people. The hospital's got maybe 6 beds left. They have a the full size of the hospital nearby is 79 beds. But of course they run at about, hospitals try and stay at about 85% capacity. That leaves 11 beds. I'm sure they will make more room by getting more people out of the hospital, but hospitals don't have room for any sort of a serious epidemic. They don't have the manpower, they don't have the beds, they don't have the equipment. For thousands of people sick, they don't have it. They are not capable. And that's what I intend to show in a few minutes. I'll give you the numbers from how many hospitals, how many beds, how many people might be sick. The one thing that I don't know is how many people will get sick. How many people are going to are able to avoid this, you know, able to slow down the transmissibility or slow down the spread. It's a wildfire, so everything happens at the same time if it's not slowed down. And hospitals, they're going to be overwhelmed to the point of just not being able to treat more than half, or maybe 75% of people will have no treatment, have no help. And the problem is with this, the bad symptom that you really have to deal with in the hospital is pneumonia. You're not processing oxygen properly, so you need to be intubated. I don't know about intubated. You need assistance with oxygen. At the very least, you might have to have tubes put into your lungs to make sure that you get enough oxygen, because that's the failure. Without the hospital, how many people die? Because with the hospital, 3.4% of people who get the disease die. That's being hospitalized. So who knows what it is if they're not able to be treated. So again, I'll put up the numbers and decide for yourself just how severe this is. Because there are things we don't know about how many people are going to get it. And that's the real key. But it's very few people before you start to have big problems. That's my concern. That's why I'm making these videos. So that hopefully people will realize that they need to stock some things up and be prepared for something more than the flu. Anyway, take care. So, this is going to be edited. Edit. Anyway, this is going to be changing. So I'm going to make different versions as time goes by and put new numbers on the screen. As it stands, I'm going to give you my local numbers because that's what I have access to most. The hospital nearest to me services roughly 80,000 people. Small town, small couple of towns, about 80,000 people. It's a 79 bed facility, and it's not the only hospital around, but it's the only one in town. There's one, there's one like a half hour away, a couple, but I'm just going to go with 80,000 people in town, 79 beds. Hospitals operate approximately, they try to keep it around 85-90%. 85% is about 11 beds available. So if we look at how many people are going to be sick at the same time and how many beds they might have available, if we make it the theoretical perfect case scenario of them having all 79 available beds for people who need help with their lungs breathing, you're going to need possible intubation, possible at least oxygen. These things you don't normally have at home, so they have to be able to help you in the hospital, and that's my concern. That's why I'm putting up these numbers. I don't think that the hospitals are ready for this at all, unless the numbers are wrong, unless somebody's wrong. I hope somebody's full of shit. I really do. This is not what the numbers they're giving, and the way it's coming around. It's like, this is not a flu. This is not a flu. This is, I'm going to fall short of saying a plague. Look, the transmissibility is R naught equals 2.2 with coronavirus novel, which makes COVID-19. The Spanish flu of 1918 that killed a huge population percentage, I can't remember, tens of millions, I think it's 50 million. There just wasn't that many people on Earth. It was a big deal. So 1918 flu had a transmissibility of 2.5. The normal flu is 1.3. So each person infects 1.3, and in turn the next person affects, or the next 1.3 affect another 1.3% of those. When you start to do that out, the 2.2 and 2.5 start to really make a difference. The multiplicative nature of it is much more. 25% of people in the general population get the flu every year. If 25% of the people get this, and it's more contagious than the flu, about 4 times or more contagious than the flu, so to think that it won't be as widespread as the flu is, they're taking measures to try and stop that. But there really is no way to do that once it's free. Once it's become widespread, with 20% of the people who get it, if you had 25% of the people ill and 20% of those people had to be in the hospital, thousands of people, when they've got 11 beds in my town. So even if I'm way off and my numbers are weird, please tell me if they are. Even if I'm way off, it's still not okay. It's still really, really dangerous, because the hospitals are not going to be able to treat these people. And it would seem that those people would die. Much more people would die because they don't have access to hospital care. That would be really ugly. So I'm hoping that that's not the case, but I think people should stock up, because once that starts to happen, things get weird. I don't know what kind of quarantines they're going to do. They've been doing mandatory quarantines elsewhere. People get weird at the grocery store trying to keep, get a lot of water and toilet paper. It's a good idea to be prepped, and that's kind of what this is about. Is like, look at these numbers to decide how much you want to put in stock and invest in being safe from having to maybe stay in your house a couple of weeks, because it's not all that out there to have to do that. It might happen to a lot of people. And if they don't have anything in their house, any water, stuff, they're going to have to go out. I don't know how that works, if you can order delivery or what. But if you can, you want to have a couple weeks worth of get by. I mean, ideally you have like 3 months worth of rations, but not everybody does. Not everybody can afford it. But I would really, really consider being ready for 2 weeks of not shopping for anything. That's a really minimal, it's a really minimal thing to do, just in case, because if you don't have toilet paper, say you're in quarantine for 2 weeks, you run out of toilet paper in 2 days, you're going to have to buy a lot of socks. It's going to cost you a lot. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Buy toilet paper. Just don't fist fight over it like they did in Costco. Hopefully it's more available. Anyway, take care.